Hello and welcome to the first lecture on the sustainability reporting part of the course. And at the beginning of each lecture, we take a look at very important concepts that are relevant for this lecture, but also for the other topics on sustainability reporting. So we will start with that, and then we will dig deeper into the framework that we will discuss today in this lecture. So the first concept that we will discuss is fair presentation, which is something that is discussed in this first framework, the IFRS S framework, that we will discuss in more detail after a few minutes. But fair presentation refers to the ability to present sustainability issues, risks, and opportunities in a faithful manner. So basically, trying to show very transparently in a clear way when you report about all possible challenges, issues, risks, and opportunities. So basically, it's trying not to hide things, not to try to kind of misguide the reader into something that is not true. It's about being transparent. It's about being faithful of what is happening in the sustainability aspect of the report. The second concept is extremely important. We will talk about it in all the frameworks because it affects everything, which is materiality. It's impossible to disclose everything in a sustainability report. We cannot really talk about every single detail. There are things that maybe there are risks that maybe they are not that clear, maybe they are not that possible. So it's possible that we do not have to include some information because it's not that clear if it will happen, if it's maybe not that impactful if it will happen. So basically, materiality tells us that something is material if it is really necessary to put it in the report. If we do not include that information, we are influencing in a bad way the decision that shareholders or stakeholders will make. In the context of the first framework that we will discuss, is basically for investors, for shareholders. So if we do not include something that is relevant for them, we are doing something bad because we are hiding material information. So that's the key thing. Something material is something that matters, something that is not material, it's okay to not have it, so be careful. If it's something that could affect the decision making of someone and you don't report it, then you are doing something wrong because that is supposed to be material and you are not including it. For this first framework, we refer to materiality on things that are relevant for investors and for shareholders, and that's fine for the first framework. You will learn that in the second framework, the CSRD, we have a different concept, double materiality, maybe you know about it, where it is more than just the shareholders. But for IFRS, we have only the shareholders and the investors, so that's the ones that we should be careful with. The third concept is due diligence. So several times when you report on something, you can use information or conclusions that other people have done. Like maybe you buy something and you need to report on that thing that you bought. You can just simply check and see what your supplier is saying about this product and report that. Maybe, for example, energy with electricity, you can rely on the impact assessment that the energy company is telling you. So they say 1 kilowatt equals whatever kilograms of carbon, or maybe it's net zero, so no impact. You can rely on that sometimes, but there are some specific situations where you have to do your own due diligence. So instead of relying, you have to do the investigation, you have to do the research about what is the actual impact of something. So that is due diligence, when you do not rely on someone and instead you do the investigation on your own. This sometimes happens with suppliers from countries where there are no certifications, where there are no bylaws or regulations similar to Europe, so you cannot really trust them. You need to do it on your own. That's doing your own due diligence. And then number four is another very important concept that we will see also in the other frameworks, which is the existence of three scopes when reporting, especially for environmental impact. We talk about three scopes because when we report the impact, we need to specify who owns this impact. Scope one is the closest one to the organization, closest one to you. Is things that you own and that impact that you produce with things that you own. I think in a factory it's very clear, like the impact that the production of your products are causing, that is the scope one impact. So it's something that you do. You totally own it, you totally control it. The second scope is a little bit further, is the impact that is generated by things that you buy. So maybe services or products. So for example, here we have the example of electricity, or it can be also maybe buying a flight to somewhere else. This is kind of scope 2 impact. When you don't fly, you don't produce electricity, you only use it. You buy that service or that product. And then the scope three is when things are a little bit further away. Like maybe in part of the supply chain, there is some shipping and there is impact, of course, with that shipping, but maybe you cannot, it's not your own. It's not even that you are buying that shipping, you are not buying that service. It's somewhere in the supply chain, there is shipping that will have an impact. That is a scope three. This is far away from you. So every time that you report on something related to environmental impact, it's important that you disclose the three scopes. From these 10 kilograms of CO2, how many kilograms are scope 1, your own? How many kilograms are things that you bought, scope 2, or how many kilograms are scope 3, things that are further away from you? This is important because then in general we tend to conclude that scope 1 you have a lot of responsibility. This is something you can fix and you should improve. Scope 2, you have more or less freedom because you can decide on which supplier is best. So you have also some responsibility, but sometimes with scope 3, we have less responsibility. And this is when it gets tricky because sometimes companies like to push everything on scope 3. So we have to be careful. If we report, we have to justify very clearly why this is scope 1, 2, or 3. And if we audit something, we have to ensure that it is clear and it is well justified. So that's it about the concepts. In the next videos, we will go into more depth about each of the IFRS standards that we have.